there, Synergizers, and welcome back to another episode of the Creating Synergy podcast. My name is Daniel Franco, and today on the show we have such an all-round genuine human being, Dr. Terry Sweeney, on the show. Look, I think it's worthwhile to strap yourselves in for this introduction. It's a long one, and the podcast, because Terry has achieved so much in his life, both personally and professionally. With over 22 years of global experience, Terry is recognised as a thought leader in digital health, healthcare innovation through technology and commercialisation. Terry's industry insights are in regular demand from international governments, healthcare organisations, public forums and media outlets, and is a strategic advisor to a number of global organisations, including the G20. He has currently stepped into the Digital Health CRC CEO role, establishing a digital health innovation strategy for Australia. Terry is also a professor at the Faculty of Health and Medical Sciences at the University of Adelaide. Previously to where he finds himself today, Terry has established and scaled two major startups, both of which have been acquired by large global multinationals. One of those startups was Curem Software, a social health and care technology business. Based in Ireland, Curem's global presence and market leadership led to IBM acquiring the company in 2012. Terry is particularly effective on identifying and incubating opportunities in new and emerging markets, not at least a $1 billion partnership with China. Terry is the founder of Auxilla, an international digital health advisory at the intersection of healthcare technology and big data. He helps healthcare, life sciences, and human service organizations around the world to solve real-world problems through the use of technology and data. During Terry's tenure as Global Managing Director for IBM Watson Health, he worked at the forefront of the Chinese government's Healthy China 2030 national agenda, establishing a first-of-kind partnership to bring new innovative technology to serve the healthcare needs of the largest population in the world. Terry has also held a number of global senior strategic positions in both government and private sectors. Reporting to the Secretary of State, Terry was the UK government special advisor on the health and social care digital strategy, leading the transformation of frontline services through technology adoption. He also led the healthcare practice for a large top 4 consulting firm. Terry was also a professional athlete in cycling, representing England at the Commonwealth Games. He holds an economics PhD from Cambridge University and a first-class honours degree in economics, also from Cambridge, and a Master of Science in Business Information Technology. Terry was honoured by HRH Queen Elizabeth II with an Order of Knighthood, CMG, in recognition of his service overseas on the behalf of the British government. So in this episode, we deep dive into Terry's journey to understand and analyse his personal motivations, to where he came from, to how he got to the position he finds himself now. Terry shares the importance of sports in his life, how discipline and work ethic helped him succeed, and how he ended up in the health field by accident. Terry shares the crucial work he and his team are doing, and that will help solve major healthcare problems, empower patients, improve understanding of health risks and individuals and communities, support clinical practice, improve system efficiencies, and access quality care and develop Australia's future health workforce. He also shares his thoughts on being comfortable with failure and the importance of his family in giving him the confidence to take risks. And he has the final message of, if you don't believe in yourself, no one will. If you love the episode, which I know you absolutely will, be sure to hit the subscribe button and check us out at SynergyIQ.com.au and SynergyIQ on all the social media outlets. Cheers. So welcome back to the Creating Synergy podcast. My name is Daniel Franco, your your host. And today we have the very handsome man, Dr. Terry Sweeney, CEO of the Digital Health Cooperative Research Centre. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Someone said I have a great face for radio. So I'm not sure about the handsome bit.
Look, I know you're a happily married man, but if you type in Dr. Terry Sweeney in Google, there's a very handsome-looking the word bachelor gets thrown up here and there. And
you found that one, did you?
I did. I found a couple of articles doing a bit of research, and I think we've mentioned this before. There is a little bit of Ryan Reynolds about you.
Look, probably Ryan Reynolds' dad or grandfather, but I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Very good. So we have caught up a couple of times. Last time we caught up, I went back to the office with a grand old smile on my face, and the people in the team, they believe I might have a little bit of a crush on you. So
watch out.
But I'll give you a few reasons why, and I'm gonna toot your horn a little bit here, but. I'm going to rattle off a couple of your achievements today.
Sure.
And I wouldn't mind if you unpack that journey.
Of course.
So you've got a PhD in economics.
I do.
Hence the doctor. You've been knighted.
I have.
By the Queen.
Well, it was actually Prince Philip, so that was an interesting one. I took my mum as my +1 to St James's Palace, and we were all excited about meeting the Queen, and we got Prince Philip, God rest his soul, but
yes.
Somewhat feel shortchanged that we didn't get the Queen herself.
Either or, it's obviously an honour to have been knighted, and we'll go into all these little reasons. But I just want to rattle through this list. So you represented England in the Commonwealth Games in cycling.
Correct. Some people think I'm still riding a bike.
Yeah.
I was that slow, and about 10 people had to get injured for me to get a call up. But I made the squad. Squad.
You've called yourself a washed-up athlete, so that's we'll go into that. You've worked in the MI6 British intelligence.
I did, yeah, making the tea.
You were advisor to the Secretary of State of England.
Yes, yeah, and that was Alan Milburn in the Tony Blair government. So that was really good insights into British politics at that time. Didn't find any weapons of mass destruction either.
That's good. That's a good sign. Built and sold 2 companies, one being Curam, which you sold to IBM Health for over 300 million or thereabouts.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. That was back in 2012. So we spent about 10 years building up our business, and I'm sure we'll definitely unpack that one. It's probably some of the best 10 years of my life from a work point of view. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, the one that really sticks with me is you then donated half of what you earned from that to charity.
Look, it was either that or give it to the taxman. So I thought I would probably do well in giving it to charities, and a lot of that was my Catholic guilt, of course. Growing up as a good Irish Catholic boy, I don't do well holding money.
No, that's good. So, and then as a result of that sale, you went on to work for IBM, where you managed $5 billion portfolio.
Yeah, IBM Watson Health. So that was a global MD for that. Splitting my time between Boston, Tokyo, and Sydney, and it lasted about 8 years, which I find surprising. I thought IBM would have kicked me out long before then, but I got away with it for 8 years.
And now, I've probably skipped a whole lot, but now currently a father of a 6-month-old boy, Eli.
Yes, yeah, little fella. He's actually just turned 7 months.
7 months now.
He's walking and talking and riding a bike. No, he's
he's quick mover.
He's quick mover, and he's sleeping for 12 hours a night.
There
so I
go.
can't ask for more than that.
No, you've got you'll have to give us your success formula. Professor of Adelaide University, you're a special advisor to the G20, a founder of Auxilia. Is it Auxilia?
Yeah, Auxilia. We do a little bit of advisory on digital health. Yeah.
Board member of the Southern Adelaide Local Health and chief executive of Digital Health CRC. So
that's right. Yeah. Not a lot of spare time.
No. And a husband in all that.
And a husband and a father, which we should probably put right at the top of the list. And I keep taking on these. People ask me to do these things, and I keep taking them on. And I struggle in life to say no to any experience and just try and find the time. But I have to say, being in Adelaide, somewhat allows me to fly a little bit under the radar and gives me a bit of time to do this kind of stuff.
Well, obviously, so but last but not least, which would be your biggest, this is your biggest accolade to date, but being episode number 43 on the Creating Synergy podcast.
I've achieved everything that I needed to in life. Put a fork in me, I'm done.
Well done. So let's recap that journey. That's an amazing lineup of goodies that you've done in your career and something you should be very proud of.
Thank you. Look, it's a little different. I think as a kid, growing up in a council estate in the northeast of England to a single parent family and not having any money, and we literally, the next door neighbour was a drug dealer, and somewhat of an interesting and colourful high school education or lack of education. I went to a comprehensive school where the idea was that the smart kids would bring the not so smart kids up, mixed ability classes and everything. The reality is the disruptive kids brought everyone down, and it was just all about crowd control. So I think, in my time at high school, I can't remember anything that I learned. So it's certainly, given that backdrop, quite an interesting and not a linear journey, that's for sure. And I know the odd person who knows most of that journey, including yourself, kind of scratches their head a little bit and think, well, how did you do that and why did you do that? But look, I just no master plan in general. Just kind of said yes to everything and
the Richard Branson way.
Drifted along and took every opportunity, and here I am. Several years later, give away my age, and living in Adelaide and loving it.
So let's cast your mind back to starting those businesses and growing. Obviously, you started your own business, was it in the 80s, was it?
Yeah, so we were at 16 at school. 16. So I like to think it's an interesting story.
So
absolutely. Me and a couple of mates who were, at the dawn of kind of modern computing, pre-internet, of course. We were all into our Commodore 64 computers, and we just couldn't afford. Probably shouldn't put this on the record, but we couldn't afford to buy games, right? So we would pirate them, and we would get into the code, strip away the security, which would allow us to copy them and sell them at high school to our friends for like 50 pence and £1 a game. And we were caught by one of the larger software houses whose name shall remain nameless. And they were so impressed at how we actually stripped away the code, because we found that if we took that security layer off and sold a game to someone, they could then copy it and sell it themselves. So we then developed our own security code, which was better than what was being used by the games companies, and put that on the top. And they took a look at the code and hired us and bought our company for, when I say company, they bought the code for about £75,000, which, in 1986, 1987.
For a 16-year-old.
For a 16-year-old kid.
How many of them were you?
There's three of us, £25,000 each.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
That's the sort of the today's world looks at cryptocurrency.
Look, that amount of money would keep our family going for 2 years. So that was kind of interesting. So that was the first foray into technology as a business, being a founder and being a bit entrepreneurial.
So were your parents proud that you were pirating as?
My mum gave me a clip around the ear, because that's what she used to do. I had quite a strict upbringing with my mum, kept me in line.
But then gave you a hug.
She scolded me and praised me at the same time. So never do it again and give me the 25,000, which I duly did.
That's brilliant. And all the while you were training as an athlete.
Cycling was my thing. I really wanted to be a footballer, and I was just soccer, and I was terrible at it. So I was playing for the school B team, running around, and there was a guy kind of came along, watched us, and approached my mum and myself after the game and said, "Look, Terry, you're not very good at football, are you? But we noticed you come into your own at the end of the game when everyone gets tired. You've got an engine, and you can keep going. So good stamina, and they noticed that I wasn't beating people with skill. I was literally hoofing the ball past them and running because they were just too tired to keep up. So, and that turned out to be someone from the National Talent ID program from British Cycling. At the time, cycling is quite sexy now, but at the time it wasn't. Do you want to come into the program? We'll give you a bike and training and coaching. And that was my, I think I was 14 at the time.
Yeah, wow.
And that was my entry point into cycling. And I got a shiny new bike and went on to get a silver in the nationals for under 17s, and again, just I was a head down, bum up, power kind of merchant, and that fortunately went on to represent my country and do a little bit of professional cycling in and around my studies.
That's such a good story. Those two early experiences of starting that business and also getting noticed as an athlete, right? That would have shaped you in pretty good stead for the rest of your life.
It certainly enlarged my ego for a little while. But
I hadn't noticed.
I think thanks. I think that's why I love this podcast. I think for me, those two experiences gave me a few tools. I think the cycling gave me a discipline, a good work ethic, because anyone who rides a bike with any effort knows that it's an arduous task and can be a thankless task, and your body wants to give up, of course, before your brain does. So the discipline and the eye on the prize, that single focus that you sometimes need in business to get from A to B. And I'm gonna just block out all of the noise and focus on the prize. I think cycling absolutely gave me that.
Yep.
The startup experience at school taught me that it doesn't matter where you're from, who your family is, your level of education. That actually, if you do work hard and you've got a skill, and you sometimes have to be in the right place at the right time. Opportunities will present themselves, doors will open. You don't have to be from a privileged background for that to happen. And at that time, I think that for me was a very important lesson. Someone asked me the other day, I'm going off on a tangent here. Someone asked me the other day about Australia being a startup nation, and I actually disagreed, and I had some reasons for that. So they said, well, give me an example of a good case study. And I said, Israel, and what makes the Israelis so good. And I'm married to a Jewish lady.
Yep.
And it's the chip on the shoulder. You've got a population of people here who have been oppressed for thousands of years, feel like the world is against them, and have this real, I'll show them kind of attitude. And I think if you look at a lot of very successful entrepreneurs, Elon Musk is a good example of that. They've grown up with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, a little bit of I have a point to prove.
Yeah.
And I think again, having that humble background and often being told, particularly at school, that stay in your lane. This is what you can achieve. This is what you can't achieve. Putting a cap on your ambition. I wanted to, I always rebelled against authority. Every report card I had from school says just doesn't like authority. And I think I've carried that forward into adulthood and into the business world where you can't tell me no.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you might be right, and I might have to give it a try, and then I fail. But yeah, I think
good learning.
Good learning experience, yeah, for sure.
I think you're right. I think I come from a similar background, played junior sport at quite a high level, but the actual point to my career success, I believe, and even family success, has always been I want to prove myself, and I don't necessarily know who to.
Yeah, that's yeah.
It just is this desire to be better and grow, and I actually really believe that comes from a sporting background. I believe sport sort of drives that into you. I'm really pushing my kids to get into sport, and especially team sport, because like you said before, it's about setting a goal and really trying to achieve that goal, and understanding what you need to do and breaking it down into smaller steps, whether it's, they're running around the oval, 10 laps every night or whatever it might be, to then working with different personalities. And that can only help you and educate you when you actually go out into the real world.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And interestingly, a lot of people don't think cycling is a team sport, but it is a team sport. And having you have your role in the team. You have teammates of different abilities with different skills. It's no different to business. I look at the team that I have now with the CRC. They're all absolutely fantastic. They're all individuals. They all have strengths and weaknesses. And myself as the leader has to really try and bring that all together and take advantage of that skill set. And sport, a team sport in particular, definitely gave that to me. And the work ethic as well. You want to get from A to B. You want to get to the prize at the end. But you've got to work bloody hard to do that. And it's probably a little bit of a cliche now, but it's don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but you have to be the hardest worker in the room. And I'm a firm believer that working hard in a smart way, but working hard really delivers results.
Absolutely. So moving into the world where you got into intelligence.
Yeah, that was look. It's on my bio now, and I'm surprised I don't get asked about it more.
It's fascinating.
I had to wait 20 years before I could actually put it on my bio, and
really? Just because of all the
there's a limitation on what you can and can't say, and even admit that you worked for them, regardless of what you did, it's. I have it at the bottom of my bio, and no one ever asks me about it. So thank you for that.
Well, I should have said Tom Cruise when I was
Look, he's a good-looking chap, but I'm not sure about the rest. I haven't seen a bad Tom Cruise movie.
No, he does make some good movies.
He does make some good movies. I post my PhD. So I did my PhD at Cambridge. So I was one of the few people from my school to actually go to university, and the first person in my family to do so. Yeah. And at the time it was on a scholarship through the sports, which was my ticket in really. And plus they have a quota on how many poor kids they bring into the college. So I wrote that ticket, and I did a PhD in economics, but I was looking at game theory models to predict certain behaviors and outcomes of terrorist cells. And Cambridge University itself has a long history with intelligence services in the UK, back to World War II, where the British intelligence service was nicknamed Cambridge Spies because they hired a lot of people from Cambridge. Yep. So having a PhD with terrorism in the title from Cambridge, it was probably only a matter of time before it piqued their interest. Yeah. And we built a model looking at the social and economic impact of a terror attack. So if someone was to fly a plane into London, in the middle of London tomorrow, what would the social and economic impact of that event be? How could then governments respond to that, financial and non-financial? So they were very interested, and my understanding is those models are still being used now to predict. That was a response to an event.
Was that pre the plane actually flying into?
Yeah, that was mid 90s.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, that was mid 90s. So that was a good 5 or 6 years before that particular big event in the world happened. They I had a bit of a chat and went in and joined them for 3 years, and got to use my passport a lot, travel around the world a bit, into some interesting places, and very interesting time in my life. Could only do it for about 3 years. That was enough for me, and then left.
What was the reason behind 3 years being enough? Was it too much information for me to be able to keep to myself, or the demand on you and stress on your as a workload, or what?
It was a number of things. I think firstly, I was looking at friends of mine who were tradies and had government jobs in the UK, all having kind of pretty normal lives, doing really well. And here was I kind of running around for not a lot of money, not really getting to see family and friends too much, not being able to tell people what I did for a job was quite challenging. And then the mental toll of the job itself. I wouldn't say that I was always directly on the front line or in danger on a daily basis, but it's a tough gig for someone in their kind of mid to late 20s, tougher than I ever thought it would be. But learned a few lessons from that, and had a good and interesting 3 years. Probably wouldn't change it. I was in a situation where I did come into there was some physical harm, and was probably a little too close to the front line than what I wanted to be, and that's enough for me. Time to leave and find something else.
Can you disclose that information?
Look, I ended up in hospital after an altercation with a bunch of interesting people in Eastern Europe, and we'll probably just leave it at that. But I did have had some really good times. I was attached to the British Army and did 2 tours in Afghanistan, and to see. I'm a big fan of I'm not a. No one's a fan of war, but I'm a big fan of the military and how the military protect us, and to see firsthand the expertise and skills to keep us all safe was fantastic, actually. Too much sand, too much sun, and probably got to about 98, 99, and thought that's enough for me. Time to find another job and a new career and somewhat reinvent myself.
So how did you end up in the health industry? Well,
by accident, really. So I came out of the intelligence services and thought, crap, what am I going to do? I noticed, this is coming close to Y2K. So a lot of people that I knew were working in tech, although it was just called IT then. It's not as sexy, and disruption was just kind of day to day. But we didn't have all of those terms that we have now. But a lot of people working in the technology sector, and I thought, they get paid well. There's the opportunity to travel. There's some good job stability there. I want a piece of that. So I completely fabricated my CV, accentuated all of this technology experience that I actually didn't have. Although, thinking back to school, I had some. And
you sold a business.
So and I got a job working with one of the Big 4 consulting firms in the UK as a management consultant.
Is that Accenture?
And Accenture, primarily working in and around big government health and social services organisations, and that's really was one of the first things that got me turned on to health and care in the UK, and then quickly kind of rose through that and became the managing partner of Accenture's healthcare business in the UK and a bit of Europe, that was really the start of my journey into healthcare and healthcare technology.
It's brilliant. And so after a few years at Accenture,
did a little bit of work there at Accenture, 2 or 3 years there.
Then QRAM.
I then got into working in and around the government, and that's where I did my advisory work for Alan Milburn, and then spotted a little bit of a trend in these big health organizations. They all deal with the public, so there's an element of CRM there. There's usually a process to gather information. There are some rules to apply to that information to work out what to do with that person, what benefits they might be eligible for, what type of care they should receive. So I had this kind of idea of developing a software platform that would do most of that stuff, and then and then include the tools to allow the organizations to develop the rest, because rules are unique to each organization, workflow is unique, security structure is unique. So I had that idea, and then I stumbled across this very small Irish software company called Curem, C-U-R-E-M. It's a Gaelic word, it means care and protection, and those boys were based in Ireland, and it was originally founded by two gentlemen, one of which was a caseworker for the Social Welfare Agency, which is the equivalent of Centrelink in Ireland, and the other guy had worked for Apple, so he was kind of more of a tech, Silicon Valley kind of gentleman, and they had a consulting firm consulting to these big welfare and health organizations. We're also thinking about productizing that, so we came together. Had the opportunity to buy into the very, we had about 11 staff at the time, and then set up the UK business, and we landed a big contract with the Department for Work and Pensions in the UK, which kind of changed the game for us, and spent the following 10 years building up that business around the world, so living in lots of fun and interesting places, and all based in Ireland. Our development center was in Ireland. We were an Irish software company. The fact that we only had to pay 12.5% corporation tax was good. But this was at a time where we saw the rise and the demise of the Celtic Tiger. Right, Ireland was a hotspot for all of these big internet companies, these .com companies, and when that bubble burst, there was a little bit of hesitancy around technology in Ireland. But we thought we've got something tangible here. We've got a product here. We were very niche, so we were going up against Salesforce. We were going up against SAP, Oracle. These big enterprise organizations with thousands of staff, all doing kind of generic case management, which you can apply to any industry. We specialized very much on health and human services, and because of that, being niche, we very much we're ahead of the pack, and I guess our crowning glory was we won about 10 or 11 of the states in the US for the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act solutions, and that propelled us and put us probably on the radar with companies in terms of acquisition. At that time, we were turning over about 100 million US a year, so not insignificant. About 600 staff. 200 of which were still based in Ireland, and that's the business that brought me here to Australia.
And return to work, use that.
We responded to a government tender, the government of South Australia. I think I was living in Wellington in New Zealand at the time, because we just did a big contract with the New Zealand government, and we responded to a tender here with Return to Work SA, and we won it. So I moved to my first tour of duty in Adelaide. I moved here at the end of 2007. For 2 or 3 years to help set up that project and do whatever, as a start. Certainly in Australia, we were a startup and we didn't have the name that we had in the US and Europe. So I would do everything from washing dishes to writing a use case to doing a data flow diagram to briefing a minister, just whatever needed to be done. And our systems integration partner for that particular project was IBM, and that was we were doing more and more work with IBM, and to the point where if you looked at their website, you would think that our software was owned by IBM. So then they came along and made us an offer at the end of 2011, and we signed it away.
What's that feeling like when you get a company like IBM coming to you, number one, promoting your product, and number two, offering all the blood, all the sweat, all the tears that goes into business, because business is difficult, right? It's extremely difficult. You talk about washing the dishes to meeting the minister. This is the ups and downs, and you can have ups and downs in the same day.
Yeah, that's true.
And what was that feeling like? Was that the goal you were aspiring to when you were building Curem, or is it was it something that sort of fell in your lap?
I think it fell in our lap. We didn't have an exit strategy, and that's probably why we went for a good 10 years, right? We definitely did not have. We didn't go into it with an exit strategy. SAP tried to buy us, and it failed for a number of reasons. A couple of years prior to IBM coming in, and that's probably when we first started thinking, we're of interest to other organizations. That's pretty cool. But it's kind of a blessing and a curse. With a big organization like IBM coming in to buy us, it was fantastic because a small Irish company of 600 people, as well as we were doing, punching above our weight, we had a ceiling, right, and we could only scale so far. Using the IBM sales and marketing machine to scale our capability more broadly, fantastic. What an exciting opportunity. The downside is being swallowed by a big corporate machine and wanting to make sure that all of our staff were nurtured, and our attrition rate at Current was extremely low. And we hired people based on the fact that they weren't applying for a job, they were applying for a lifestyle, and myself included. And it was absolutely, and we'll look after you, and we'll look after your family. But we expect a lot of, we'll give the loyalty, but we expect the loyalty back. And we got it, and that model worked for us. You can't say the same thing about a big organization like IBM or others, and we wouldn't have had the control. So we wanted to make sure that everyone was looked after, and also that our value proposition wasn't being diluted, because we were successful because we were small, we were nimble, our costs were low. We didn't have a huge network of offices around the world. Therefore, our sell price for our software was very competitive, and we were niche. So we went a lot deeper than any other of these big players. So there was always the danger and concern that we might lose that advantage if we were swallowed up by a big machine. So very much a blessing and a curse. And then they told us how much they were going to offer for us. And it all became a blessing.
Absolutely. And I'm always interested in, and you work with, offer advice and an expert in scaling and growing and looking for market opportunities. The idea of creating a business or growing a business for the reason to sell, is that a good reason? Because you see it so often these days, whereas you actually didn't have that as the end game, the exit point. But we see it, we're sitting in lot 14 here today in South Australia, and there is absolutely element here where there are businesses who are looking to grow only to sell, as opposed to grow a business because they actually want to provide value. Yeah,
and it's a good idea, right? And people are willing to buy that good idea. And look, I firmly disagree with the going in proposition of a new business that I'm setting this up to sell it in 3 or 5 years' time. And I think, unfortunately, the Silicon Valley boom, where we've seen a lot of VC money around, and unfortunately, there was a period of time where I think a lot of those investors didn't necessarily do all of their due diligence on a company before buying it. I think has given the impression that it's easy, right? And if I've got a good idea, I can turn that into a unicorn. And why wouldn't all of these people come lining up to give me money? That's no longer the case, and certainly not in the world that we live in right now. And I think my view, and everyone's journey is different. My view is you go into it because you firmly believe that you've got a good idea, you've got a point of difference. So you're offering something that either no one else is offering, or you're offering it in a different way. So what's the competitive advantage? Are people willing to buy your product or service? And if the answer is yes to all of those, you've obviously got a fighting chance. But I don't believe the secret to a successful startup or scale up is I've got this great idea and I'm going to sell it in 5 years' time and let's work back from there. I think organically growing the business, a little step by step is the way to go. And if you build a successful and sustainable business model, then the rest will come, and you will attract the investors and the folks who might want to acquire you. But each to their own.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there has to be a purpose, right? There has to be a reason, and the reason can't be purely money.
Yeah, no, I fundamentally agree with that. Fundamentally, yeah.
What are the tips to growing a company? What are some of your tips? Well, if you were advising a startup right now, or even just any business that's looking to grow and scale, where would you suggest they look first?
I think for us, and particularly with Kurum, it's the small incremental growth. I think there's a lot of people really feel like it's a race to grow and to get market share, and we tried that a little bit, and we failed in that. So I think the first thing that I would say is small incremental natural growth to your business. It's the old don't run before you can walk, and that's an obvious statement to make, and it's not advice that's really world leading, but I see so many startups and scale ups that are in a race, or they feel like they're in a race, and it's just just take a step back and build your customer base. Whoever your customer is, it doesn't matter. But build your customer base and build your customer loyalty. One of the things that we found is when we responded to a tender or we went into pitch to get some new work, and we at Kurum we did VC pitching as well, right? Goldman Sachs gave us €10 million to get started. Yeah. We pitched to the Irish government through the beautiful organisation Enterprise Ireland, who've got some good capability here in Australia, continue to do so. They're the Austrade equivalent of Ireland. They gave us some initial seed money for 2% of our business. But that build your customer base, build your customer loyalty. We went in passionately with every customer engagement, every project that we embarked on. We went broad and we went deep, and we did a quality job, and we focused without any kind of disruption or distraction. We focused 100% on building the relationship with our customers. Because the old adage, you get way more business from an existing happy customer than you will with new customer acquisition. So we wanted to build a small number of customers who were extremely loyal, extremely happy. We had the ability to land and expand rather than just going out of the blocks a little too quickly. So my overall message there would be kind of just slow down and build the foundations of your business. Don't build the skyscraper without foundations, because you'll get found out and it is going to fall down. And I think a lot of people right now just seem to be too eager to get to the end point without having to do the hard work in the middle.
Absolutely. Guilty as charged. Like I think the idea of growing quickly, because you see the opportunities, right, and you see them present themselves, and you think to yourself, well, if I only did this, then that could mean more market share, right? It's a pretty simple formula.
It really is, and there's a perception that these big, high-profile organizations have got there quickly, and they haven't. I'm fortunate enough to have a good relationship with Mike Cannon-Brooks at Atlassian, and you ask the Atlassian boys or you ask the Canva team, how was their overnight success? They would laugh, right? Because it's hard yards, but all of a sudden they get some good press, they hit the headlines, and it's like, wow, they got there really quickly. So actually, they did a lot of hard work to get there. That's right, exactly.
Yeah, and had a lot of tears during
and a lot of tears.
Yeah,
and I think look, the other thing I would say is that the positivity on failure. In my experience, most of what I do in my life, I get it wrong, whether that's business or family or other things. But I'm willing to put my finger in the socket and see if it's actually turned on or not. And if I get electrocuted, it's probably not going to stop me from putting my finger in another socket. I'm very comfortable with failing. Actually, very comfortable with it. Okay. And I'm also very comfortable with being above average. A lot of people, a lot of organizations feel like they have to be the world's best at something, or I have to have something here that is truly unique. Well, it's not often now that we can come up with an idea that is truly unique. And it doesn't have to be world leading, world beating. And I always say my superpower is I'm slightly above average at a lot of things. Yeah. And my school grades would say that. I'm a C+ guy, right, at school. Yeah. And I think it is a superpower. I think if you can be okay at a lot of different things, that's pretty good, because there aren't a lot of people out there that are actually pretty okay at a lot of things. I agree. A lot of people kind of specialize. So I think that's an important factor as well, in being comfortable with failure. And again, I like the Atlassian model. They didn't come up with world groundbreaking software. They came up with some pretty useful tools for developers. We've all used Jira, or a lot of us who are in tech have used Jira. It's kind of useful, and it's kind of forgettable that you have it, right? And it's cheap, but it works, and it's got some subject matter expertise in there, and it makes someone's day a little bit easier in what they do. Agreed. And I'm a firm believer that's probably a better way of being successful than coming up with that killer idea.
I want to touch on the mistakes part. Were you open to making mistakes earlier in your career? So the Terry Sweeney of the 1990s, early 2000s, compared to the Terry Sweeney of 2021, are you more open to making mistakes now than you were back then?
That's a really good question. Given that I have a family, right, and I have a wife and I have 2 boys, and I think ordinarily I would say, well, look, I have a family now. I have to do what I need to do to put food on the table for the family, and in that respect, probably you would think I'd be less risk averse or less willing to make mistakes because of that. But I've just happened to have married someone who is as crazy as I am and has a high risk appetite as I do.
Definitely helps.
Yeah, it definitely helps, and I think for me having that very solid, stable, we're all in this together family base probably allows me to be even riskier than the young Terry Sweeney who was single and didn't have a family, and what's the worst that's going to happen, right? Yeah. Probably nothing really bad. So I think my risk appetite now is probably higher than it was, interestingly, because of the power that my family gives me and the confidence that my family gives me. I think that's probably for me, having a family has given me more confidence than I've gained from, running around on a bike in the Commonwealth Games, or standing in Japan a few years ago in front of the G20 leaders and talking to them about big tech and healthcare. It's the confidence of that solid family background that's allowing me to kind of go out, and I still have a few fingers in a few pies, and my investment strategy now is probably riskier than it's ever been.
Yeah, I agree. I think the importance of having a partner that supports and is willing to ride the roller coaster with you is super important. My wife has definitely been that person for me. It's, going out and starting my own business. We were building a new home at the time. I left a government role which was paying quite well. Building a home sinking all this money into this development. I was doing a development at the time, and my wife was working part-time, so there wasn't, other than my income, there wasn't much really coming in. And I said, I want to go out and start my own business, and I want to leave in the next couple of months. And, obviously we had planned for the day that might come, and we had a little bit of a nest egg. But the pure fact that she said, no worries, I believe in you, actually just made that process so much simpler. Everyone goes, oh, how did you feel, stepping out? It was scary, but knowing that I had someone there who was willing to come along with the ride with me was super and super important.
No, it really is. Yeah, I can't underestimate that great family life that I have. Look, I think you have to back yourself as well, right? Oh, and if you don't believe in what you're doing, how can you sell that to someone else?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you sell this business. You're now a millionaire, multi-millionaire, and you decide to give it away.
Look, I gave a lot of it away, mostly Catholic guilt. I'm not a religious man, but I grew up in the Catholic Church and as a good Catholic boy, and it's a religion that drums into you. Anything good that happens in your life, you should feel guilty about it, right? So there's still, and I think Catholics around the world will resonate with me. Yeah. It will resonate. Yeah, I think that will resonate with them. That you always feel, I don't deserve this. Yeah. So I was probably I've always done pretty well for myself, but for the first time, had some significant cash in my pocket, and I just felt a little didn't sit right with me.
So tell us what you did. You're umming and ahhing over there. Tell us what you did. It is an amazing story.
Look, I've got a few, and the boys would have done this for me as well. Like the first thing that I did was when the check cleared from IBM, and we got our shares paid out. Was fly to the UK, and I've got three of my best friends from high school. We're all still besties. Look, they do okay for themselves. They have jobs. Pretty much a hand to mouth though. Probably not too much disposable income available. Flew home and without trying to be Mr. Big Shot, I paid off all of their mortgages and bought them cars and sent them off on holidays and just got them set up nicely, so they didn't have to worry too much about life. And then and did some similar things with my mum and my grandma and some cousins. And so went across and look. Not altogether selfless, it made me feel good about receiving all that kind of money, all that amount of money. So I did that, get them all set up. We got a box at Newcastle United. I have to mention Newcastle United, my beloved football club. I wish I had enough money to buy them now, but I don't. So I'd fly home and we'd go in with the directors and watch the games, which is we were struggling to put money together to buy a ticket for the game when we were kids. So that was pretty special. So did that, and then identified 2 or 3 charities that I feel passionate about, and donated to them, and then that allowed me to feel good about life. And then I went out and bought my first silly car.
Lamborghini, wasn't it?
Yeah. I got a Lambo. It's just kind of stereotypical middle-aged kind of tech guy that gets a bit of money. Went out and bought an Italian sports car.
You ran out to treat yourself.
Yeah. That was that. Now I drive a Tesla.
Yeah. And I remember our conversation last time. You said the Tesla just hands down beats
best car I've ever driven. Like I've had some bloody good cars, I had a Lambo and a Ferrari and an Audi R8 and a Porsche 911 and a few different cars, and cars are my thing, as you can probably tell. And then I got the base model Tesla Model 3 a couple of months ago, traded in my Mercedes AMG GT and got this, and best car I've ever had.
Amazing, isn't it?
It's fantastic.
I got into the Tesla Model 3 with a friend, and I didn't drive it, but I sat in the front seat and he put in ludicrous mode and said, check this out.
Yeah.
It was the most exhilarating thing. Like your stomach cannot really handle the speed that this thing goes.
It's fantastic. And being in tech, like the idea that Tesla is a tech company that makes cars.
That's right.
I love it.
It's so good.
$60,000 car, it's pretty good. And the fact that I can just go home and plug it in is fantastic. And I think now that I've tasted an electric car, I can't ever imagine going back to a combustion engine at all. And this is a guy who was fan of the V8s, a bit of a rev head, and I just don't think I could go back now. Yeah.
You're doing your bit for the environment too.
Look, let's call it that.
The charity you started, one of the charities yourself, didn't you? And you started with a particular human being. You're allowed to name drop in this.
Oh, that one. Yeah. Look, it's a little known fact that I've got a connection with a certain actor, Hugh Jackman, and I was involved in the early days of setting up Laughing Man, which is a cafe chain, a couple of them now in New York, and the idea was originally to look at homeless charities and to bring some people through and give them hospitality skills, and then we looked at more of the kind of the farmers at the back end who are growing the coffee crops, and when you pay $4.50 for a flat white, the smallest piece of that pie goes to the farmers.
Yep.
So that charity was involved in setting up scholarships and programs for the farmers and the families of the farmers to give them a bit of a go.
Beautiful. How did that relationship come about?
Oh, through his wife, through Deb. Okay. So when I part of getting that big lump of cash for the company was sponsoring and donating into a couple of Australian charities, and Hugh's wife happened to be a patron of one of those charities and got to know her first, and then got to the man after that. A few people were surprised. We got I was just married in the Barossa Valley a few months ago, and we had, because we're in a COVID world and not everyone can arrive, we got friends and family to throw in some video messages, and we got a little one from Hugh at the end, and most people were like, what? That's not real. You didn't do it. Who's he? How do you know him? So that was
used AI. So we're going to skip, and I'm conscious of your time, so we're going to skip to the digital health world. But first and foremost, before we jump into that, you've gone out, you've built this business, you've then gone on to work for IBM Watson and built a very, very stellar career through those guys as well.
8 years at IBM. I honestly am so surprised I lasted that long, because I am just not cut out for life at a big corporate organization. And I think IBM tolerated me, to be honest, for 8 years. And I was having fun. I had to leave. I had the golden handcuffs for 3 years, and then I stayed on for another 5 because we were having some fun. But look, I'm just surprised it took so long for them to get rid of me.
But you're in a position where you probably don't need to work anymore, and then you decide to become CEO of the Digital Health CRC.
It's an interesting pick. It's not an obvious pick, I think, for them or for me, to be honest. I was doing a little bit of my own stuff part-time last year. So I quit IBM kind of April, May last year. I was working in Austin, Texas, and came back in COVID land and did 2 weeks quarantine in Melbourne, and then drove to Adelaide, and they made me do another 2 weeks here, so 4 weeks.
Wow.
And decided I didn't want to go back to corporate life. Did a little bit of work locally here, and then because I know one of the board members of the CRC, they approached me and said, look, would you be interested in this role? I don't think they'll mind me saying this, but I always used the CRC as an organisation that's not getting it right in digital health, and there were a number of reasons for that. And but the potential is huge. The potential is huge, and if we get it right, we can do some big things. So I think, partly as a favour to one or two board members who I know very well, and they have a stellar board. They have an absolute stellar board. I thought I'll give it a go and see what happens, and put my toe in the water. And now I'm all in. You know, we've opened up this innovation hub here in Adelaide. We just opened up offices in Melbourne, and we've got some really cool partners. You know, we've got 16 universities. We've got some great industry partners like Alcidion and Telstra Health and Bupa Foundation and others. And we've and you know, pretty much every health jurisdiction in the country, state and federal, is a partner of the Digital Health CRC. You can't get that access and impact in any other organization, and we're a non-for-profit. We're neutral. We're like Switzerland. So we can kind of walk into any room and have a conversation, and we're taken seriously because of the credentials of our 74 partners. We have 74 partners. It's one of the bigger CRCs. We've been funded with $110 million over 7 years, and another 90 in kind. So we're technically the largest digital health collaborative in the world. So a lot of good reasons as to why I joined that organization, and the ability to grow my own team. So it's no surprise that there probably was surrounded by 5 people who I used to work with at IBM, who now work here, and the ability to do some good in digital health, and have a big impact, and the potential of that organization was what attracted me to it. And I have to say, I'm 6 months in, and we're doing the hard work, and we're doing it incrementally, and we're building a solid foundation. But now we're at the point where we can start to do some cool things. And I think what kind of really puts a spotlight on that is where we are now. You know, we're in Lot 14. It's the Innovation District in South Australia, and we're right in the heart of it. And we're officially launching on the 27th of August our innovation hub here. And in addition to that, we've spun out a commercial entity called Digital Hive, Digital Health Innovation Ventures.
In the papers recently, wasn't
That's right, yeah. It was kind of...
Nice photo of you.
Thank you. Photoshopped. It's one of my... that was kind of a baby of mine before I joined the CRC, and fortunately it's kind of very complementary to what we want to do with the CRC, so we're realising that. And that's focusing on the commercialisation digital health, creating digital health as an industry, because not only do we have a responsibility to solve some of the big healthcare challenges using digital technology, but we have an obligation as a CRC, because we fall under the Department of Industry, Science and Innovation, who gives us 50% of our funding, and they're fantastic, by the way. We have an obligation to look at stimulating the economy, creating jobs, attracting global talent to Australia, and that's going to be the focus of our commercialisation arm called Digital Hive, and we're going to set that up in a way that is self-sustaining and self-sufficient to allow it to live beyond the remaining 4 or 5 years that we have left as a CRC.
That's brilliant. The digital world in health, last time we caught up, you threw some statistics at me saying that health is only using 15 to 20% of the actual data available. And that if doctors were to actually read all the data available, it would be about 167 hours.
You got it, yeah. Yeah, it's there's some
per week or
per week.
Week.
You're right. There's some incredible stats out there. We've got this. We're in this situation in healthcare and technology where healthcare costs are just rising. They're out of control, right? I mean, obviously the US kind of typifies that, where 17% of their GDP is spent on healthcare. So they're clearly getting it wrong. In Australia...
So on that, what is your expectation that they should be spending on health?
Look, the average across OECD countries is 8 to 9%. Australia is sitting at about 9%. Our clinical outcomes in Australia are very high, but costs are rising, and we don't, unlike parts where I think parts of the US health system get it right. They're very focused on the consumer. They're very focused on the patient, and we haven't historically been like that here in Australia. So we've got this we've got rising costs in health, and at the same time, we've got all of these problems that the health heroes face on a daily basis. So that the typical clinician, as you said, would have to read 167 hours a week just to stay on top of information that's relevant to their job.
Yeah.
And it's impossible, right? It's impossible to do. We're in 2021, and less than 50% of, or just under 50% of medicine is evidence-based. So about half the decisions that are made in our health system are not being made based on evidence. And
so what are they? So let me get this straight. I'm going to the doctor. I've been diagnosed with a disease of some sort, and the answers that I'm being given, or from this doctor, is based on what they have previously.
It's based on not even half a picture, right? And if you think about it, in other industries, retail and banking and financial services are good examples, where the big tech companies of this world, they're all about data, they're all about information, and how do we get insights from that information? So they're monitoring, they're gathering, they're analyzing huge amounts of data sets, which informs them on how to drive their business. And they're very successful. Look at big companies like Google, and they're very successful at doing that. We don't have that in health, and the missing component is a lot of decisions that are made are based on a knowledge base of information. It's the training and the textbooks and some of the experience that those clinicians have had. But we're not crowdsourcing information. So, the example I use is if I'm diagnosed with cancer and I'm having a conversation with my oncologist about my treatment program, I want that oncologist to have all of the information available to them to make the best decision possible on how we're going to treat my cancer. And getting that from a knowledge base of textbooks and literature and research papers is only half the picture. The other half is, where are we getting the crowdsourcing information on everyone else that has stage 2 colorectal cancer with my characteristics, middle-aged guy in here,
and what works?
We want to crowdsource that information, that patient information, and then look to see what worked well, what didn't work well, and use that to inform the decision on me. And that's something that we don't have. I mean, that information is available, right? Healthcare data is doubling every 73 days. During our lifetime, we're going to generate about 1,100 terabytes of healthcare-related data about us. We've got 3 billion data points in our genome when it's sequenced, and we need to interpret that and be a bit smarter about that. So the information is there, but we're not really, or we haven't historically tapped into it. And that's where I think technology comes into play, because we've got, particularly with AI and machine learning, which can read up to 800 million pages of unstructured data per minute. It can find patterns and correlations and relationships and data sets that we never will as humans. We need to use that technology to access all of that information. 90% of all of the data that exists in the world today was only created in the last 2 to 3 years. We've just got this explosion of information. And it's getting, from a health and wellness point of view, where we have our Apple Watches and our Google Fitbits and other devices, it's just becoming more and more prevalent.
Is the privacy piece in all this, is that the bit that's holding it back?
Look, yeah, absolutely. I think that's spot on. It's not a question about technology. It's not a question about the data not being available. It's about the privacy, the security, and the sovereignty, or the perceived issues around those things.
What could they honestly do
with data?
With this data?
No, look, I think we've had a go in Australia in particular at doing some national things with people's health information. We just seen a couple of weeks ago there was an announcement from the UK that healthcare data is going to be used for research purposes for the first time. We have to sell the benefits to the individual, because if that individual gives consent, then all of the privacy and security and sovereignty goes away. I tick my box on my banking app to say, keep me informed on other things, right? Sometimes you're going to get bombarded with spam and it's not relevant, but sometimes there's going to be a winner. Or if I'm shopping on Amazon and I've been shopping for the same jeans all my life, and they say, hey, Terry, we've got them in black. Do you want us to send them? We've got them in your size. Sure, it's convenient. It's relevant to me. We need to have that mindset, I think, in health and health data, where if we sell the benefits of being able to share everyone's health data for good, and it can be done in a secure way, it can be de-identified, and all of those good
I think
things.
that'd be the most critical bit. Just take the name away from it.
Take the name away from it. It's not a discussion, or it shouldn't be a discussion around technology. It should be about the benefits of sharing your information into the larger pool, because again, no one can argue with the fact that if you're an individual and you or one of your family members gets critically ill and you have to deal with a doctor or the healthcare service, do you want that person to have all of the information available to make the best decision possible? Absolutely. You can't argue with that. No. So then let's work back from that and make it happen. And some of the digital tools will certainly help enable that.
It's scary that we're not doing that. I think you and I are both fathers, right? And you think about if your children get sick, you want that information to be available. And I don't care where you get it from, just get it.
No, exactly right. So I think they're the messages that we need to sell, I think, to the Australian public, because we shouldn't be having a conversation around data privacy. Again, we use our banking apps on a daily basis. Yeah. Could that get hacked? Could someone steal our financial information? Could someone duplicate our credit card and go on a spending spree? Sure. But do we worry about that? Does it stop us from using that? No.
But what's the fear that you're going to get this email selling you antibiotics? Like, what is the fear about giving that data? Like, what could it actually be used for? If we put our shoe on the other foot, what could it actually be used for?
Look, I think one of the fears is, in Australia, with insurance, particularly with private health insurance, we're on a pool basis, right? So then there's the potential to get into profiling. This person has type 1 diabetes or a history of other types of chronic disease. So maybe you're going to have to pay a little bit more. Now, that's how it works in other countries, right? It's the same as car insurance. You have a bad record and you have to pay more. We don't have that system in Australia. There's also potentially worries about employers finding out about information about your personal health information, which might be the feeling might be that that's going to put my employment status at risk if my employer knows that I'm dealing with a health problem. Yeah. So there are definitely some real and honest concerns, but technology can be an enabler to put that to take those worries away. The problem we have is technology and the data explosion are going at a much faster pace than policy and legislation and regulation, and we need those. We need to have good regulation in place to make sure that people do the right thing. Yep. But it's just not quite keeping pace with the tech. So we need to have a really hard think on how we do that, and put those checks and balances in place. But we're in 2021. We shouldn't be having a discussion about my health information being used for the next person who's got the same condition as me.
With the rise in this data being available, we're categorically saying that we're going to live longer, potentially.
Look, I think we are. We're going to live longer, and I think we're going to live longer in our own homes. If you look, one of our focuses at the CRC is an aging population. We've just had the Royal Commission in the aging. We're starting from a fairly low base in Australia, in that sector. But we know from research that 90% of an aged population, over 65s in this case, have a desire to remain in their own homes. But only 30% are able to do so because of health and safety concerns. I think we're living longer. We want to live a little bit more independently, and again, I think that's a fantastic use case for technology. One of the things that we're seeing in healthcare globally is this rise of what we call virtual care. It's the delivering healthcare services to people where they live, rather than having them come into we see problems here in Australia with ramping and the EDs are becoming overflowing and can't cope from a capacity point of view. So how do we stop people presenting to the hospital when we deliver more digitally assisted models of care to people where they live? And I think that's one thing that's going to keep us a little safer and give carers and relatives a little bit more confidence that we can allow people to live independently in their own homes as we all age, if we've got the technology available to monitor and evaluate and alert where there's potentially going to be a problem. And we're at a stage now where we've got so much passive technology that can be in the home, that can be used to monitor our health and well-being. I think that's certainly going to be the next boom area. We've got, I did a little bit of work at the beginning of last year with Best Buy in the US, right? They're the Harvey Norman or JB Hi-Fi of the US. They sell TVs and stereo systems, etc. And they've got the Geek Squad. So they're the people that come out to your home and put your TV on the wall. We now have Best Buy Health, right, where they're installing passive monitoring system into people's homes, particularly elderly people, to monitor their health and wellness. We've got a little device on the fridge or the kettle or the shower. We know this person because we've mapped their routine. We know this person typically has a shower at 8 o'clock in the morning. They open the fridge at 9. They put the kettle on at 9:30. So you can map the person's routine, and then you can monitor for exceptions to that routine. It's been 2 days since the person's opened the fridge. Could be a problem. Maybe they haven't, we've noticed from the bed sensor that this person, is still in bed 2 hours after when they normally go. So let's alert someone to go in and check on that individual. Yeah. And that's being sold as a service like you would have with an alarm system, where I'm going to monitor your home security system, and if the alarm goes off, I'm going to call the cops. So there's certainly technology available to allow us, I think, to age more independently in our own homes.
Yeah, it's really brilliant. Last time we spoke, you you said something to me that I actually took away and wrote down, and I really, it can be quite, well, I'll just say it. So you mentioned to me that Australia believes we are innovative as much as we believe that we're not racist.
Oh, you put it out there now. Okay, yeah. All right, I can't go back.
It's a really interesting comment, and can you elaborate on your thoughts around that?
Sure, yeah. Thanks for that curly question. Well, I never shy away from a question or an opinion. Look, I think from the innovation point of view, we think we're an innovative country, and we're not. And look, I'm clearly, from my accent, I'm not originally from here. I've been a citizen for over 10 years. I love Australia with a passion. I choose to live here. I don't have to live here. And I think we live in a blessed country. It's a wonderful country. But we have some problems. And I think in order to make things better, we need to recognize a few things, right? And I think from an innovation point of view, we think we're very innovative, and we're just not. We're just not. And particularly when it comes to healthcare, and there are lots of good people out there doing good things, don't get me wrong, but as a nation, we're very conservative when it comes to digital health and healthcare technology. And it's not been embraced in, I've worked extensively in China, in Japan, in South Korea, Singapore. And those countries embrace technology in health. They're very, very innovative, and they're willing to give something a try. It's the entrepreneurial mindset of a government. Now, I know that's not as easy in Australia with a short political cycle, where it's difficult to put in policies and procedures that last 10 or 15 years if you're only in for 3 or 4. but you know, we see innovation from governments and in these, particularly these Asian countries, where we'll give it a try, and if it doesn't work, we'll try something else, and they're not frightened to fail. Here, we're a little more cautious, and we're a little bit more frightened to fail as a country. Therefore, I don't think we're seeing the innovative breakthroughs or the entrepreneurial mindset that we see. And again, I use Israel as an example. You know, Israel doesn't have natural industry. They don't have the resources that we have in Australia. And I think this is not a political statement, but as a country, we've gotten a bit lazy because we've relied on the natural resources we've had.
The iron ore
and in Israel, they don't have that. So they have to create. And that's why I believe Israel is very, very innovative, backed up by government policy that encourages innovation, and it puts in the right economic factors and stimulus to now. I'm sitting here in Adelaide, and I see that in South Australia, actually. I think the South Australian government is doing a wonderful job at the moment at creating things like Lot 14 and allowing, you know, we've attracted Google here, Amazon, MTX have just landed here. We have the Space Agency, the Cyber Security Centre. So there's definitely something working here. But this is a pocket in South Australia. Nationally, I don't see that. So I think we could be more innovative. The other thing I'm seeing from an innovation point of view is we have some really good homegrown talent that has to go overseas for funding. And we get that brain drain, particularly to the US, and that's still happening now. So I'd like to see more of a venture capital framework here in Australia that really supports homegrown talent and not shuns it. I think there's a tendency in Australia to look overseas to bring in the best talent in the world. Well, sometimes the best talent in the world is here, and we have to recognize that, and we have to nurture that. So that's on the innovation side. More controversially, on the racism side. Look, a couple of years ago, I've got a mate in the UK, and he said, Terry, he said, from my point of view, there's a perception that Australians are inherently racist. And you've lived there for quite a while. I'm a middle-aged white tech guy. What would I know? But what's your view? And I thought about it for a while, and I think it's true. I think in Australia, we're inherently racist. The dangerous thing is most of us don't realize that we are. I think, you know, when we see racial tensions in places like the US, it's a little bit more obvious when someone is being racist. It's much more subtle here, which I think actually is more dangerous. We don't have the self-awareness that we are. So largely, we are as a nation inherently racist. If you just look at the way we treat our Indigenous population, and I lived in New Zealand for a couple of years, and there are challenges there, of course, as well. But you know, the typical white European settler who's grown up in New Zealand for a few generations would generally speaking, would revere the Maori culture. They promote it and are very proud of it, and sing their national anthem in Maori. We try to hide our Indigenous population, actually, and I don't think we openly address some of the challenges that population has. So I think the answer is yes, we're inherently racist.
Absolutely agree. What is one of the? Let's point out the obvious. What is one of those subtleties that you're seeing in people's behaviour?
Look, I think the Adam Goods example is a good one, where he would often get booed, but again, look, there's an argument. Well, I've seen David Beckham play soccer in the UK, right? And I booed him because he's good, and it's almost like a backhanded compliment. You're the best player on the team. I'm going to boo you to just kind of G you up a little bit, right? And try and put you off your game. So that's one thing. I genuinely believe with the Adam Goods situation is there will be a number of people in that crowd who are booing because he is a strong, high-profile, outspoken Indigenous person. Would some of those people who were booing still do that if he was white? And I think the answer is no. I'm not saying everyone that booed him was racist, because there'll be, but
there are people who booed him because he pointed out a young girl in the crowd.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you are correct also that you're right. If he was a white male,
yes,
would that have happened? Probably not as severe as what it does. And and that's not to say that the white men in the AFL don't get booed, or you talk about David Beckham, they do, but that's because they might have hit someone or on the field or did something on the field.
Or they're just a little bit too good looking, and it's like I just want to bring them down a peg or two.
Yeah, but the simple fact that ends in that game, right? It doesn't go on. But the simple fact with the Adam Goods one, it carried on. So yes, there must be something more to it.
There has to be something more to it, and I think just the profile of our Indigenous population. Again, when I talk to friends of mine who live overseas, they don't have any visibility or awareness of the Indigenous culture that we have here in Australia. But again, looking at a country like New Zealand, everyone's heard of the Maoris, right? And the obvious one would be that rugby would be part of that in terms of the haka. But that's an obvious one. But I just think we need to elevate our Indigenous culture a little more and be proud of it and promote it. So it is on the radar, and I think that will help us understand things a little better. We may not be able to solve all of the problems we have, but at least if we have an awareness and a consciousness of what we're doing. But yeah, look, and you see similar things in the US, right? With the First Nations people there as well. It's not. I'd say it's a similar situation to what we have here in Australia.
Yeah.
So thanks for asking that question.
No, that's all right. It's an important point to raise anyway, right? Because we really need to stop. I think Australia, like you said, has had the luxury of being a very safe, and Adelaide just got the most livable city in the world,
and rightly so.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Most livable doesn't mean most innovative, though, right? So I think we really need to take that into consideration. Is if we are going to move forward and we are going to catch up to the Israels of the world as far as innovation we view innovation, I should say, then we really need to start looking at ourselves in the mirror.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Not only from an innovation point of view, from the racism point of view, and I think that's why I really liked that comment when you made it, and I took it away and wrote it. So. But getting back to the health, and we are sort of close to ending the podcast. So, I'm really interested in what your future thoughts are and what the digital world of health looks like. From booking our local GP to the type of, can we choose our own type of antibiotics that we want? There's this talk about vaccines at the moment as how I want Pfizer, I want AstraZeneca, or no one's actually saying I want AstraZeneca. But do you know what I'm saying? So where we have choice in this as opposed to being told what we're doing. Can you expand on that? Yeah,
look, I think that's a good one. My view is that healthcare is the last industry to where the consumer is not king or queen, right? I go back to the shopping analogy and using Amazon. It's a beautiful experience. I went on and just bought a new monitor here for the office. For my desk.
That box that was just
yeah, that's right. It just arrived within 2 days. I got all of the information from Amazon to help me make an informed choice on. And look, some of that is they're promoting things they want me to buy, right? But if we're conscious of that and aware of that, then I don't see that as a problem. But I had all the information available, and then I made an informed choice on the monitor that I bought, and it was delivered within a couple of days, and it was a great experience. And there has been follow-ups, and how can we improve the service? We don't have that in healthcare. We're far from it. So we are consumers of healthcare services, but the service is imposed upon us. We don't have a choice on the type of service that we receive, and we don't necessarily always have the ability to give feedback on the service and therefore give that information to other people to help them make an informed choice. So it's consumerism, right? It's consumerism, and it's not. It's happening in the US because 50% of the healthcare service in the US is value-based care. So what they do in a value-based care system to measure whether the healthcare service to that patient or population was successful is one, radically, let's ask the patient, do you feel better? Do you feel satisfied after your hospital operation? How was your experience? Now, right now in Australia, we're an activity-based healthcare system. So a provider is paid a fee to deliver the service, regardless of whether that service was delivered well or not. We're starting to see some providers being penalised for readmissions of the same problem. So you didn't get it right first time, and we're going to penalise you for that. But you know, we're just on the edge, I think. You know, we are talking in Australia, we talk about things called PROMs and PREMs. It's patient-reported outcomes and patient-reported experience. Let's ask the patient about their journey through the healthcare system. So I think the future is consumerism of health. It's, to your point, it's giving all of the information to the patient to allow them to make an informed choice on which healthcare provider they will use, the service that's being delivered to them, and how it's being delivered. I want to come in face-to-face. I want to have it at home. We noticed in COVID the rise of telehealth. My God, how long have we had telephones for? It doesn't have to be a video chatting, just be a call, right?
But even just to be able to pick a doctor based on how many stars they've, or what they're, you know, over the reviews.
Yeah, and we can do that with TripAdvisor, right? If I go to Sydney and not at the moment, but if I go to Sydney and I want to choose a hotel, I can go on to TripAdvisor, get all of the information. Don't really have that with healthcare providers.
Well, I had to book an appointment at the doctor, and it was sort of like, I need to go in there today because I need to just get something checked and whatnot. And I don't like waiting. And my general local GP down at Henley Beach was booked out, and they were booked out for a week, and you could see it online. You go on the app, and I said to my wife, "Where do you go?" Because we go to a different GP for some reason. And she says to me, "Oh, I go to this doctor down the road. He's quite good." I said, "Okay, cool. What's the website?" She goes, "No, you got to call." I said, "What's that? What do you mean I got to call? How old school is this? I don't want to call. I want to just book online." She goes, "No, you got to call." So I called. And they said, "We've got an appointment today, come in at 10:30 in the morning." I said, "Okay, cool." I walked in and I sat down, waited for 5, filled out the new patient form, whatever, old school. I don't even think the pen was clean. There wasn't a clean pen and a dirty pen. But I sat down, I filled out this patient form, handed it back in, and there was 3 people sitting across the room, and one of the guys looked pretty agitated. He was an older guy, he looked pretty agitated. And then they were talking. I was just looking at emails or whatever on the phone. He then turns to me and goes, "I've been waiting here for an hour and a half. How long have you guys been waiting for?" And there was another little old lady standing there. She goes, "I've been waiting here about an hour and 45 minutes." And I sat there and I said, "What? For the doctor such and such?" And they're saying yes. And I got up and I went to the receptionist and I said, "Is there an hour and something wait for this?" She said, "Oh yeah, you'll be here a while." I said, "Did you not think to tell me that when I walked in? I don't have 2 hours to sit here." And I actually walked out and I left. And I didn't get to see.
Look, I think that's a common, and unfortunately that's a common scenario. I mean, it's not difficult from a tech point of view to have a live tracking system, right? So you can see how far your GP is behind, and then you can do other things with that time instead of sitting and waiting. But it's also a mindset, we as consumers, as patients, we're not happy, but we're willing to we will sit for an hour and 45 minutes, right? Because really we don't necessarily, if I go into David Jones to buy something and I get crap service, I'm like, I'm out of here. I'll walk down the road, to Maya and buy it from there. I have choice, and the consumer can do that. We need to get to a point in healthcare where the consumer has that.
It's an expectation. From my point of view, I am not sitting. I don't want to wait more than 15 minutes.
And the best way to unlock that is moving to a value-based care system, where the biggest measure of successful healthcare service delivery is the patient's experience. And as soon as you ask the patient, and as soon as you monetize that, so that provider is not going to get paid unless that patient's had a good experience, then look how things will change.
Lead with the problems. Figure out what the problems are. Understand what they are, and then work back from there. I think you've said that a few times today.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
So, we're going to finish up the podcast. We've probably gone well over. Yes, we have. We've gone well over.
I talk a lot.
No, that's right.
Another one of my superpowers.
I was saying to Gabriella on the way here that we could. I feel like we could have spoken for 2 or 3 hours in the full Joe Rogan experience.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So I've got some quick fire questions that we end up, and we're big learners here at the Creating Synergy podcast. These can be quick fire. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, depending on your answers.
Of course. Yeah. I'll try and slow it down with my answers.
But we're big readers, and I'm really interested in what you're reading right now.
Oh my goodness, that's a good question.
If you are reading
I'm reading Dr. Norman Swan's new book, which is really good, and it's a really good snapshot on what we think is good for us from a health and well-being point of view. I'll not mention too much more than that because it'll spoil it, but I think that's a fantastic read. And Dr. Swan's actually going to be down here in Adelaide, I think, talking at Uni SA in August, which is fantastic. So we'll be in there for that. But that's the read at the moment. Love him anyway. I think he just talks a lot of sense when it comes to health. So that's what I'm reading right now. And I'm rereading a book called Anti-Fragile with Nicholas Taleb. That we have a term fragile, but we don't have an antonym. There's no, so anti-fragile, and that not quite chaos theory, but that take on economics is very, very interesting to me. So I'm rereading that one as well.
It's a hard read for anyone.
It's a hard read.
All his books are quite a difficult read.
I was fortunate enough. I met him in the US back in the day, and he is as crazy in person as he is on the page. He has some out there theories on economics, but what a character! Absolutely.
Yeah, I do like it. I like Black Swan.
Yes, very good.
What is one personal development book that stands out for you?
Oh, well, I don't believe in personal development books, which is just everyone's different. I don't. I like to just read a bunch of different things, fact and fiction, and then just take little things out for myself. But I don't think I've ever read a personal development book in the same way, and I'm being very controversial here, in the same way that I don't think you can teach entrepreneurship and innovation. I think you can give people a bit of a framework with some critical thinking, but I'm not sure it's something that you can teach. Now, I'm saying that because I haven't read it, and I haven't read a book on personal development, so I might be completely wrong. But it's something that I've never really been attracted to.
Well, the way I sort of look at personal development books is more about, and I really only read personal development books from people who have gone on to achieve some great things, and you just learn from their story.
I think that's very valid. You're learning from people's stories.
You learn from their behaviours. You learn from their mistakes. That's kind of really where
that's very fair. Very fair.
Is there any podcasts that you listen to? Any other podcasts other than the Creating Synergy, of course?
Yeah, I love the. I was a bit of a fan of This American Life, and it's the boys who went on to create Gimlet, the podcasting platform, and I'm re-listening to their podcasts around. It's called Startup, and about how they set up Gimlet, and anything from like choosing the name, and they went after a cocktail, and their view was, or the advice they got was, you just call it anything. It doesn't really matter. And for fans of the Silicon Valley TV show, calling a company Pied Piper, like it just doesn't matter. So I really like that kind of, and the fact that they got agreement to record their pitch sessions early on, so they would go in to VC meetings and record the the good and the bad.
So that's how good is that?
Absolutely fantastic. So I'm listening to that one again at the moment. I'm a sucker for Premier League soccer, so I listen to anything related to that. So I've got all the daily updates from the Euro Championships and BBC Sport and what have you. So that as well.
I haven't seen that. It's Italy versus
England.
It is England
in the final.
4:30
a.m. Adelaide time next Monday.
That's almost me versus you. too. There,
Come on,
really.
England. Yeah.
My background's Italian. But,
There you go.
look, I'm Australian through and through, but my
yeah.
family and heritage is Italian. So it'd be interesting. All my family are all up watching it and putting up social media posts of them jumping up and down.
Nice.
I value sleep far too much, but I might get up and watch the final.
Yeah.
We'll see how we go.
The other one I'm listening to, which is really interesting, is Eddie Hearn, who's the boxing promoter.
Yeah.
So Anthony Joshua, world boxing champion, is under his management, and he has a podcast series where he has a different sporting guest, and it's all about the mindset. Maybe this is personal development. The mindset of that particular athlete, how that can potentially translate into the business world. So a little bit about what we spoke about earlier. So the Eddie Hearn podcast is a really good one too.
Look, personal development is all about mindset, and it's really about application, how you take things on, how you view things. Going back to your mate Hugh Jackman, right? The Tim Ferriss podcast with Hugh Jackman is one of my all-time favorites. I think if anyone wants to listen to that, because they do talk about learning and books and behaviors and habits that Hugh, I mean, he's a very successful human being, whether it's from his body, right, which is obviously A grade, but then also his mindset is just so strong, and they're the learnings that I love from.
I should probably listen to that.
Haven't you ever listened to that one?
Listen to that.
Make sure you send him this one too.
Yeah.
Get him
his feedback.
Get him to plug it. If you could invite 3 people for dinner, this is a typical question. 3 people for dinner, who would you invite?
Oh, that's it's an interesting one. It's a good one, and I probably chop and change
based on your mood,
who I would, depending on my mood and what I'm doing at the time. The first one would be my wife, Anya. Because she's the person I turn to on a daily basis to seek advice and opinion and input into everything I do in my life.
You've just got the biggest tick in the world.
Look, I thought I'd get that one in.
I love it.
Keep the coffees coming from her. So I'd have, because you've got to share the experience with the one you love, and
that's right.
It's only half an experience to me if she's not there, right?
Look at you.
So she would have to be alongside me for sure. Look, I think it's an obvious one and an overused one, but I think Barack Obama would be one for me. I was fortunate enough to meet him and speak. Many speakers after him at a leadership conference in Korea in 2017, and I just find the guy fascinating as a human being, and again around the stories and insights from him as a person, very charismatic. So I think he'd just be a little bit of fun as well. So I would definitely have him there for sure. Look, I struggle with who I'd want to bring to the table.
I reckon a dinner with his wife as well would be amazing.
Look, I think that would be. Let's just call it dinner with the Obamas, and we'll just leave it at that. I think that would be fantastic. Neil Finn would be there. So I'm a tragic Crowded House fan, always have been. And like a lot of people, it's the soundtrack to our lives. I've seen them so many times, as Crowded House, as the Finn brothers, even Split Enz back in the day. And for me, he's a musical god. So I would have him at the dinner table, and obviously try and get him to play a tune or two while we're on. That would be absolutely fantastic. And God rest his soul, my granddad. I think he would be the last one. Very insightful man. As someone who grew up without a father, he was my father figure, and just a gentle giant, and a gentleman, a real gentleman. He passed away quite a few years ago now, and he always had a no nonsense little snippet or piece of advice, and I think I'd love to have him at the table as well. So that. Not a fantastic answer, I don't think.
No, that's an amazing answer. Don't discount that. No. What is some of the best advice that you have received? And it might be from your grandfather.
You're probably going to have to beep this one out, but
No, that's fine.
Terry, you're doing a good job. Don't fuck it up. So it's
Just keep going.
just keep going. Don't overthink it. I don't think I'm an overthinker, but in any walk of life, particularly in business, we do have sometimes we can get into that mindset of overthinking, second guessing what we're doing. Make a plan, stick to the plan. Doesn't mean you can't change the plan and you can't pivot, but just don't overthink it and believe in yourself. We mentioned that earlier on. If you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to believe in you. So believe in yourself first, and the rest will, other people will buy into that if you buy into it yourself. So there are a few little snippets that other people have told me, but don't mess it up one is probably an old boss of mine. That was the best piece of advice that I got.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Well, it makes you self-reflect, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, very much so.
If you had access to a time machine, and with it's a two-way trip, but you could go forward and back, where would you go?
Or the obvious one would be 1955, like Back to the Future, right? Just because that's
get in the
that's
DeLorean,
get in the DeLorean and go. Yeah. Oh, so this is I've never said this to anyone.
Oh, yes.
Ever.
I love a good story.
I love my classical music.
Oh.
And
I must admit I do too.
Yeah, and Rachmaninoff is my favorite composer. And my absolute favorite piece of music in the world is Rhapsody on a Theme by Paganini, his Piano Concerto No. 2. And I would travel back in time to 1912-ish when that was kind of just released, and have a conversation with Rachmaninoff. I'd have to learn a different language, but that
bring a translator.
Yeah, I think that one would be.
That's amazing.
Would be it's a little.
Has that song done anything for you personally, or is it just something you connect to? Or
it's something I connect to. It's very inspirational, and again, growing. My mum would play. She's a Motown tragic, so my mum was a jazz singer in the '60s in clubs, in smoky jazz clubs. So I would grow up listening to like Ella Fitzgerald and Miles Davis, but also a lot of Motown, Otis Redding and the Platters. So classical music's not an obvious choice for me. So that was the first piece of classical music that I listened to, got very emotional when I first heard it, and it touched me. It resonated with me for whatever reason. So that was very, very powerful, and that's always kind of stuck. That piece of music's always stuck with me. So it would be nice to go and meet the person who wrote that.
Yeah, I'll add it to the Spotify playlist. If you could have one superhero power, what would it be?
That's a good one. The ability to make coffee on demand. I kind of have that with my wife. That's why I was talking really nicely about it.
She's a good barista.
She's judged the World Barista competitions. She's been involved. She's been across to all the coffee growing countries around the world.
So my invite's in the mail? Then?
Invites in the mail. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I wake up every morning and she makes me pretty much the best coffee that you can get in Australia on a daily basis.
What beans
but
does
she's
she
not
use?
always with me. She's not always with me.
So
I think my superpower would be the ability to snap my fingers and there'd be a flat white there. That would be fantastic, I think. But other than that, I've never been I want to fly, I want to have invisibility or live forever. Nah, none of that.
No,
just
none of that.
Coffee on
Just
demand.
coffee on demand. Just get it coffee on a drip.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
What beans does she use? I'm interested because I'm a big.
No, we mix it up. I'd have to give you a list, and we do. I should know. I should know.
No,
this.
that's fine.
But
you're the drinker, not the man.
I'm exactly. Yeah.
And last but not least, you're a father now, 7-month-old Eli. Tell us your best dad joke.
Oh, best dad joke. I have a 7-year-old too, Anthony. So we've got 7 years and a 7-year-old and a 7-month-old. And I'll give you a joke that my 7-year-old told me, but I think it's the ultimate dad joke. Is what is a soccer player's favorite drink?
What is a soccer player's favorite drink?
Penalty.
That's horrible.
It's horrible.
It's the best.
It's awesome. So I think that's
and very relevant with the Euros on it.
That's right. That's my favorite dad joke.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us today, Dr. Terry Sweeney. It's been an absolute amazing chat.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Where can we find you, and do you want people to get in contact with you?
Love to, yeah. So we're at dhcrc.com is our website. We're also on Twitter, and I'm also on Twitter and LinkedIn. Dr. Terry Sweeney AU, I think, is my Twitter handle. But yeah, catch me online. Always really keen to hear from particularly the startup and scale-up community on what they're doing, the ideas that they have. Part of what we do at the CRC is to turn an idea into action and create impact for Australia. But we need the ideas, and believe it or not, it's harder to find the ideas than you'd think. So, always very keen to have a chat with someone on ideas that they have, things that they're working on, and looking for opportunities to partner.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks, Terry. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Cheers. Bye-bye.